Hello, my friends. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the autosomal DNA results, predicted phenotype traits, and GED match results of an Iron Age South African farmer woman. Very, very interesting results. This woman lived 400 years before present. Actually, I am very surprised that it says it's kind of difficult to get used to this because it is Iron Age for them, but for us, for like Europeans, it is definitely not the Iron Age. For us, it is like essentially medieval period. Not even medieval for us. For us, it is like Renaissance. But for them, for South Africa, it is Iron Age. That's kind of crazy to wrap your head around that. But it is 400 years before present. Essentially, it is the time of colonialism uh, in the Americas. It's a very recent genome, common era, 14th to 16th century common era. It is a female. Her mitochondrial lineage is L3, and the sample name is ela001. So let me show you what what she scores with GD matches Eurogene's K36. She is actually very West African, which is kind of interesting. She's from South Africa, but her genetics is very West African, which is kind of surprising. With Eurogene's K36, she scores mostly West African. She scores 66% West African. Followed by that, she scores 14% Pygmy, which is, I guess, a South African component. I noticed that South African hunter gatherers score mostly Pygmy with Eurogene's K36 calculator. Followed by that is 11% East African, which is kind of interesting, and then 3% Central African, 1% Amharic. So she's more. She looks very Bantu in her result. She looks like a Bantu individual rather than a South African. excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry. She looks like a Bantu individual rather than a South African farmer strictly, which is kind of surprising. Is it? Is it? I'm wondering if South African farmers are different from South African hunter gatherers in a meaningful way, in such a way that South African farmers are more like Bantus, whereas South African hunter gatherers are more like Pygmy or are a separate cluster. I wonder if there's a distinction like that. Let's see what she scores with my own ethnicity calculator with my own trait predictor. Well, the result here is very, very funny. She's actually closest to Clint chimpanzee and Oko the gorilla. Followed by that is Sham Laka from Cameroon. Followed by that is South African hunter gatherer. Followed by that is African American, then Mota Ethiopian hunter gatherer, and then Khoisan, then Sham Laka, another individual, then African American, and then Tafarat. So let's see what happens if we get rid of Sham if of Clint and Gorilla from the Oracle, because they score identical to sub-Saharan Africans, and they make the. Of course, it's very funny to see that sub-Saharan Africans score closest to Oko the gorilla and Clint, chimpanzee, but it may be a little bit misleading because they are not human. They are not human groups. So let's get rid of these groups, and we get rid of these groups, and she scores a mixture of Shamlaka and various Europeans. So Shamlaka and 7% European. Let's actually set distance column to 0.5. I didn't get rid of the gorilla. Let's get rid of the gorilla. Yeah, get rid of the gorilla and chimp. Yeah, getting rid of the gorilla and chimp. And now she's getting modeled as a mixture of 72% Shamlaka and 27% African American. So yeah, so she's essentially very, very black. So um, if we include gorilla and chimpanzee, then she's gonna score gorilla and chimpanzee. But if we exclude gorilla and chimpanzee, then we see that she's essentially just very, very black. Gorilla and chimpanzee, if we include them in the model, she's gonna score them, but we have to exclude them because obviously we don't want to include these kinds of really racist groups in our model for a human individual, right? They're kind of irrelevant here. I don't know. I can't really. I don't want to remove them from the Oracle because like the way it's coded, the way it's programmed, removing these groups from the Oracle would be very difficult for me to do. The way it has been programmed, it would be a lot of work, and I don't want to do that work. But maybe it has to be done. I don't know. Because like it's just kind of weird. Like if you're an African person, you can actually end up scoring closest to gorilla or chimp. It's very possible. It's very possible, and it's actually very probable. Like it can happen. It can easily happen. Like in some cases, for example, in this case, in this case, it has happened. So because chimpanzee and gorilla score pretty much identical to sub-Saharan Africans with my calculator. So like it's kind of super racist, and I don't know what to make of it. I actually don't even know why that happens, why that occurs. I have absolutely no clue. So, and I'm not sure how to then mitigate that. So, yeah, kind of no comment. Let's see what this individual scores with Nasha code calculator for the phenotype and appearance. It looks like she's got darkest brown eyes, definitely very dark eye color. 94% likelihood of darkest brown eyes, definitely very dark in terms of pigmentation of eyes. Even for regular brown eyes, the likelihood is only 5%. For any other eye color lighter than brown, pretty much no likelihood of that. For hair color likelihood, very dark hair color, definitely black hair, no likelihood for hair color other than black. For skin color likelihood distribution, actually that's kind of surprising. So for skin color, she scores light brown skin, 62% light brown skin. So she's not even scoring dark brown skin. So most likely she has light brown skin instead of dark brown skin. Um, that's surprising. Okay, so she doesn't have dark brown skin. She's got light brown skin. And for hair texture, looks like she's got kinky hair. 87% likelihood of kinky hair. So somebody with kinky hair, light brown skin, black hair, and dark brown eyes, maybe would look East African in my opinion. I don't know, like Somali or Ethiopian. Looks like she does not have BH3 or BH2 or BH1. She does have one light color variant in this variation, which is kind of surprising. Surprising for somebody from this kind of region and this ethnicity. She does not have any light color variants in this variation of SLC24A5. Why is she scoring light brown skin though? Okay, she has one light color variant in this variation of IATA4, which is super surprising and incredible. Like this is actually so incredible. How does she have light color variant here? That is that is like so incredible. That's super uncommon, super unlikely. Okay, so that definitely contributed to her scoring for light brown skin instead of dark brown. This also, well, this is not so unlikely. This is kind of more easy to explain and understand, but this also contributed to her scoring for light brown skin. And she does have light color variance in TIRP1. This also contributed to her scoring light brown for skin tone. Okay, and she does not have any light color variance in MC1R, so she does not have any predisposition to ginger color of hair. Okay, let's see for the phenotype oracle what phenotypes she likely resembles. We see that the phenotypes she most likely resembles are all sub-Saharan African phenotypes. For the mixtures, I'm not really an expert on sub-Saharan African phenotypes, even though I made them. By the way, you can see there's subtle differences between them. Like, for example, this one on the top versus this one on the bottom. Can you spot the subtle difference? It's the difference in nose shape. Look at the nose shape. There's a difference in the nose shape. I was morphing some of these phenotypes. I was morphing the phenotypes myself, like in Pixor, and I was making sure that I you know I was morphing these phenotypes myself. Like I made them myself, all of them. But I don't even really remember all of the differences that I made. So like even for me looking at them, some of this stuff, it's like having Alzheimer's. You know, in a way, it's like having Alzheimer's. I don't even remember some of the differences that I made in these phenotypes that I made. So the closest mixture, it looks like it's nilotic, which is kind of the super really dark phenotype that looks in a way almost like white, almost like a white person, but in a really dark color paint, like a white person wearing blackface. Plus 50%, like typical black African, like some kind of person you can see like in America, just like a black American. The second closest mixture is like typical Black American plus typical Black American, and the third closest mixture is like Black American with a slim nose plus typical Black American. Very interesting. Let's see for the biomarkers what this individual scores. So for the biomarkers, um, she is scoring she's scoring above average level of vitamin D. She's scoring above average level of LDL cholesterol. She's scoring below average level of HDL cholesterol. She's scoring below average level of glucose levels. Very interesting. Above average hemoglobin. She's scoring below average blood pressure. Really good to see. She's scoring slightly below average level of iron in blood. She's scoring slightly below average level of sex hormone binding globulin. She's scoring slightly below average level of red blood cell count in blood. Very, very interesting. Let's see polygenic risk scores. Let's see for that. So she's got average odds for Tourette's, a very high score for epilepsy. Wow. So she definitely has to watch out for epilepsy. Um, Epilepsy is interesting. I added this very recently. I'm not sure if that's on the version of Trait Predictor that's on itch yet, because I might not have pushed that onto the itch version yet. For asthma, looks like she's got a much higher odds of asthma. Looks like she's got a below average odds of leukemia, a um, slightly above average odds of vitiligo, slightly above average odds of myopia, a slightly below average odds of primary biliary cirrhosis, a below average odds of stroke, a below average odds of male pattern hair loss, which is not surprising because she's African. Afri- Africans tend to have lower odds of male pattern hair loss. She's got a below average odds of atrial fibrillation, below average odds of deep vein thrombosis, slightly above average odds of bipolar type 1. Relative to Europeans, she has average odds of schizophrenia, but relative to sub-Saharan Africans, her odds of schizophrenia are pretty much spot on average. So for schizophrenia, she's got pretty much spot on average odds of schizophrenia. For type 2 diabetes, she's got below average odds of that. For Alzheimer's, she's got average odds for that. For multiple sclerosis, she's got slightly below average odds for that. For breast cancer, no risk variants. Really good to see. For testicular cancer, 10 risk variants. None of them are in keto G, so she's good. Really good. No risk variants for celiac disease. No risk variants for GSS. None risk variants for Crohn's. None of them are in the really important variations. Really good to see. No risk variants for Riefenstein's. Two risk variants for Parkinson's. Wow, and the risk variants are all here. Let's look this up. So she's got two risk variants in this variation, and oh, that's not that big of a deal. It's not that uncommon to have risk variants here. It's not that uncommon. Okay, and for Gilbert syndrome, she has five risk variants and two here, one here, one here. I don't think I'll be looking these up actually right now because it might take too much time. For basal cell carcinoma, no risk variants. Really good to see. Okay, let's see the monogenic trait stuff, and we'll be done here. So it looks like she's got actually warrior genotype in Comte. That's crazy. That's a very European genotype to have. So she's actually a warrior in Comte and warrior in MAOA as well. Higher dopamine levels and slower breakdown of dopamine for sure. That's a very European kind of genotype. That's kind of crazy. Definitely very unexpected for somebody who's a sub-Saharan African. What's also very unexpected is she's a carrier of a risk allele for dwarfism. I just noticed that. So she's carrying a risk allele for dwarfism. Um, wow. Okay. For dopamine D2 receptor sites, looks like she's most likely got intermediate number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain. Very interesting. Looks like she's got long form 5-HTT-LPR. That's crazy. So she's got long form 5-HTT-LPR and significantly reduced risk of depression. That's also a very European genotype to have. Looks like she's got high odds of autism. Very, very interesting. Looks like she does not carry the European lactose persistence mutation. Looks like she's got a higher level of empathy, which is also very typical for sub-Saharan Africans. Sub-Saharan Africans tend to score higher levels of empathy, and especially when it comes to OXTR gene, and this only takes into account OXTR gene. When it comes to HLA genotype for diabetes, for type 1 diabetes in specific, she's got a very unhealthy genotype in HLA, definitely much higher odds of type 1 diabetes. Based on this genotype alone, I'm assuming she's going to have a messed up genotype in the HLA gene overall because it's all like interconnected. If you have one messed up genotype, you most likely have a bunch of other messed up genotypes as well. Like they all are interlinked together. It's like haplotypes interlinked together. If you have one thing wrong, then most likely the thing that's next to it is going to be wrong as well. So I'm assuming that her HLA panel is going to be messed up. Like all of it is going to be messed up. But we'll see when we get to it. Looks like for hemochromatosis, she's not a carrier for any of the hemochromatosis mutations. Really good to see. Um, for Alzheimer's, no risk alleles for Alzheimer's in APOE. Really good to see. For multiple sclerosis, yeah, once again, as you can see, there is one risk variant in HLA here, but actually it looks okay. I mean, I don't see that much. I don't see that many risk variants for MS and HLA. It's not that bad, I guess. For cardiovascular issues, looks like she's got a predisposition to intermediate odds of cardiovascular issues. That's good, I guess. Um, for myopia panel, she does not have the G allele, which would protect from myopia, but we already saw her risk score for myopia. For vitiligo panel, looks like she has heterozygous genotype in the HLA variants relevant for vitiligo. For telomere panel, it looks like she's got longer telomere length. Yay, good to see. So she's got slightly longer biological lifespan and like lower biological age, I guess. So she's younger biologically than like me, for example. For example, I have shorter telomere length, which means biologically I am older than her. I'm 7 years older. So me at age 21 is actually age 28 biologically because my telomeres are shorter. So I have less of a life left to live because my telomeres run out quicker and I will age quicker than her because she's got more telomere length than me. I don't know if I explained it that well. Sorry, I'm not that good at explaining things. For EDAR, it looks like she does not have East Asian genotype in EDAR. She's got high odds of protruding nasal bridge in PAX3. She's got longer or typical mid-face length, smaller nose size, likely higher nasolabial angle, nose pointing up, slightly thinner eyebrows. Very, very typical. No micropenis, and she does not have micropenis. Neither of the two variations for micropenis. Okay, really good to see. She does not have photic sneeze reflex, but carries one allele for photic sneeze reflex. Really good to see. One variant for increased pain sensitivity in SC and 9A. Um, she's got AC in this variation of EDAR, which means likely not European facial traits, but it is rare for Europeans but common for East Asians. And she has AG in this variation, which leads to larger brain volume, and it's actually a rare genotype. Very, very interesting to see. Her risk of heart failure due to beta blocker medications is essentially just average. Okay. She does not have any risk variants of familiar Mediterranean fever. She is not a carrier for Melanesian blonde hair variants, and she is not a carrier for any of the albinism mutations. Her risk for alcoholism is pretty much average. Um, she does not have any risk variants for holoprosencephaly. And let's see, does she have any risk variants for any of the rare diseases that I look for? No, not really. Um, she has two risk variants for APOB, two APOB risk variants for familiar hypercholesteremia out of 14. So she doesn't really have to worry about lipids levels that much. Doesn't really have any problem with that. Um, okay, for androgen receptor gene AR panel, it looks like she's got decreased risk of baldness. Yep. So you see, it's very typical for sub-Saharan Africans to have this decreased risk of baldness here in this variation. Um, for them, they usually have the protective alleles from baldness. It's us Europeans who typically have to worry about male pattern hair loss. And for HLA gene panel, looks like she's got intermediate, slightly higher odds of autoimmune disease. Yes, as I said, it's most likely with her kind of genotype, it's most likely she's got intermediate or slightly higher odds of autoimmune disease. I was suspecting she'd have highest, but it looks like she's got intermediate instead, which is kind of good. It's okay. For HIV and AIDS panel, looks like she's got some genotypes for reduction of HIV viral load, but she also has this genotype which greatly increases susceptibility to AIDS and HIV viral load, which is kind of really bad. I think that mitigates the positive effect of this genotype, sort of, which is very unfortunate. Um, okay, so let's see what she scores for the muscular dystrophy myopathies. Looks like she's got two risk variants for adrenoleukin dystrophy out of 48 total. I'm gonna chalk that up to miscalls. I hope that's not like actual risk variants found in her file, like found in her actual DNA. I hope that's not the reality. I am gonna chalk that up to miscalls. And there is one risk allele in this variation. Let's look that up. Um, let's see, what is that? Okay, that's quite common, right? So this is not that big of a deal. This is not that big of a deal, but the two risk alleles for regional leukodystrophy, I'm gonna chalk that up to miscalls. For color blindness panel, looks like she's got one risk variant for color blindness in OP and one SW. Very, very interesting. For FTO gene panel, looks like no risk variance for obesity, and that's pretty good. So she's not predisposed to being obese. For syncope panel, based on okay, this is definitely not correct. So there is some kind of a glitch here. I'm not sure what caused this glitch. It's some kind of a memory glitch, I think. But yeah, I'm not sure what caused this type of glitch. But her syncope risk is quite above average. Based okay, and bio traits panel looks like she's got a um looks like she's got one copy of the hunter gatherer COTCL1 gene variant and one copy of the farmer variant. Intermediate ability to process carbs and sugars. Farmer allele is C. Looks like she's got lower odds of motion sickness. Okay. Looks like she's got um protection of neurons against glutamate toxicity and intermediate and increased rate of glutamate degradation. Really good to see. And for blood group panel, looks like her blood type is most likely type A, but it is also possible that her blood type is type B. Very, very cool. Type AB is also quite possible, but not very probable. And type O is not very probable at all, but most likely her blood type is type A and also possibly type B. Well, that's kind of all I could all I could talk about here for this file for this individual. Thanks for watching my video until the very end. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Also, I do want to suggest that you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Um, leave a comment if you wanna comment on something I said. If you found something interesting, maybe you wanna mention something. Yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye.